All right, JP, we've got a big one. We're going to preview New Zealand, USA, the second time in the last decade that these two teams have met on American soil. We'll bring in a couple of special guests who played in that game. Ryan Crotty from the All Blacks and Andrew Suniula from the Eagles. And we'll go around the grounds real quick with some of the latest news and action from Major League Rugby. But first, tonight's banter brought to you always by shopmlr.com, powered by the Rugby Shop. JP, I know you just love your rugby merchandise. You had to get rid of all of it when you got married like the rest of us, but you're restocking with MLR gear. I see some of those Rhino rugby balls over your shoulder, a Rooney hat and arrows hat over the other shoulder. What else is Rugby Shop selling at the moment?
Just it's all about seasons for me, and I love a good discount. So you've got to get your sleeveless tank tops heading into winter.
Oh, damn!
Just start popping them all winter long.
Oh, yeah, it was an awesome build-up. Well, me and Andrew were lucky enough to come over a wee bit earlier. I think it was a few months earlier, and to do some promotional stuff around the game, and you kind of got a bit of a sense for it then how excited people were for rugby to be coming to America. Then that week leading to the Test match was awesome. Chicago's a great city to spend a week on tour, and got to indulge in some of the Chicago's attractions, mainly the pizza. There's a bit of they got a bit of a claim to the best pizza. I don't know how that goes, but yeah, it was awesome. It was just a cool week, man. It was back out Soldier Field. Like, a lot of the boys are football fans as well, so to be playing on such a special stadium was really cool, and there was a lot of excitement, and yeah, it was a big week for the All Blacks to kind of put our brand, to an audience that may not have seen as much of it before.
It was quite bizarre for me personally, because I obviously, growing up in New Zealand, huge fan of the All Black, wanting to be an All Black at one point or another, trying to climb the ranks through the age groups, the hope and dreams of making the All Blacks like every other kid in New Zealand. I've never seen the All Blacks play live prior to that, so that was my first sort of. I've actually watched the All Blacks twice, and both times were on Soldier Field, and one of those times I was playing against them. So that was in the back of my mind in terms of not seeing them live, watch them live, play live, was actually play against them. So that was something, that was in the back of my mind personally. But I think coming together that week was such a, as a rugby player preparing to play a Test match, was quite different, because that was Monday was our first assembly. 6 days later, we're playing the number one team in the world. So that was also in the back of my mind, just kind of bringing it back to reality. What are our expectations out of this game? One, being a historical game. Two, we've got a tour that we're looking to kick on with, heading into the 2015 World Cup. So we had some goals that we had as a team, but coming together and putting together a spectacle in front of 66,000 people, in front of what Crotty just mentioned, such a cool place to consume sports, let alone participate in it. That worked out well for me. I didn't think I made a tackle at all. So, there was I think we just turned around. There was, they're under the post. We were under the post. I said, what happened?
Yeah, it was.
No, but it was the pace was definitely something, that we hadn't experienced as a group, particularly with how quickly, the ball was moving. And then of course, getting your defensive structures organized quick enough to kind of answer any questions. And then there's the physicality part, which, we were able to match at some point, but you got to be able to sustain that throughout the 80 minutes, and then hanging on to the ball. Like, it's very, very tough to play rugby without the ball, and those guys never give you the ball back.
There you go. Good chat from those guys. Kept it pretty professional. I kind of forgot that they did the pre-game press tour together. So Crotch was over here with Victor Vito for quite a while. So those two, they started chatting before we got started. I'm like, I didn't know they knew each other, but there you go. Small world, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, when we were asking Crotty, and we said we're going to have someone for the game, he actually requested that he came on. So it must have been quite a memorable trip they had, around a few late nights around Chicago in the traps. But that was, I mean, we were both at that game. How special of an occasion was that? And now to bring it to DC with all of the events this week surrounding USA Rugby, it's going to be quite a memorable experience there as well.
I thought it was because Crotty had 9 carries for 221 metres right through that 12-13 channel thing. To Andrew shooting out of the line. Just kidding, Drew. He can't defend himself now. He's not here anymore. But yeah, he's going to be special. And we go back into an NFL stadium. And now the big test is we come out of this COVID period. Can we fill FedEx Field? And that's a big question. Ticket sales flying along there. And I hope we do fill it out, because I think it's great for the All Blacks to come through. And even if it is periodically like they had, they're coming back and played Ireland a few years later, and that was another great crowd at Soldier Field. But you don't want to go to the World too often. I think it takes away from the special kind of feel to having these big teams, big tier 1 teams come over. But I love the fact that the ABs are coming over, and if you can get out there and watch it, like you said, you and I were on the sideline. You grew up in New Zealand, so you know the mystique of the All Blacks. For me, it was on the opposite side, watching them smashes all the time. But to be down on the field and watch them operate, it is honestly, it's like watching a great artist paint or a great singer sing. It is poetry in motion. USA Rugby launches the official World Cup bid, united by rugby. Talk about a big moment here for rugby in the United States, and Andrew Suniula kind of mentioned it, the World Cup coming here. And there is almost like this air of expectancy that's coming in 2031. JP, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think with the successes of MLR, this game's going to go a long way. And then, qualifying for the next World Cup is going to be a big part of it too. But what does it do to the game here? Like, how important is to have a World Cup here?
Not only what it does for the game here, but what it does for the game globally. I think you'll see probably most countries, rugby playing nations around the world, wanting the World Cup to come to the States. There's a big thing in terms of market. So, the World Cup comes here. We saw what the Soccer World Cup was able to do for Major League Soccer and the trajectory it centered on post the World Cup. I think you see a similar response here in the States. There's every opportunity that is the platform that's required to really grow rugby here, but also grow rugby commercially to a wider audience around the world. Because if you look at what matters when it comes down to sponsorships, it's all about eyeballs, and that gives a bigger platform for a lot more events, perhaps maybe even a global competition one day that includes the United States in there. Who knows?
Blasphemy. How dare you talk about it? No, I'm just kidding. It's exciting times, and there's going to be some big decisions coming up out of this World Cup. And listen, I think you're naive to not do it if you're World Rugby, to bring it to the biggest sports market in the world. I know people will argue that, but it's to me, it's a fact. And we've both lived here for a long time, JP, and there's no country in the world that does sports like the USA. Like, it's ridiculous here. It's fantastic. So now this next one, this really hit me on the old heartstrings, JP, because I love a mascot, and we've got a new one. Archie, the raccoon, is the Arrows mascot. I was hoping for someone dressed as an arrow in a quiver, but they've gone with Archie, the raccoon. I like it. He looked pretty sharp on the sidelines. I can't wait for him and King Creole to get into a little bit of a fisticuff on the sideline next season.
You'll find it interesting. You know how Australia deployed the army to, curtail.
Not a political podcast. Stop it, Aaron.
The Great Emu War.
Yes, the Great Emu. They've lost.
They lost. Well, a couple of years ago, the Toronto mayor declared war on raccoons, and the city of Toronto lost war on the raccoons.
Trash bandits.
They call them the trash pandas. And basically, he declared war, but they had such a big cult following on the background, they actually became kind of icons. One died, and they built a memorial to it there. So they couldn't defeat it. And then at the end of the day, they decided, instead of fight the trash pandas, that they should embrace